One of your infrastructure measures is working its way through the process this session.
That's right. Senate Bill 190, that bill has been worked on for a long time. We had an interim committee to investigate Missouri's infrastructure issues and how additional investment could go to those. Our infrastructure is decades old. Our regulatory environment over that infrastructure is over 100 years old. And there was concern that the regulatory environment did not encourage infrastructure investment. And that means modernizing our infrastructure. Most of us remember when we had dial phones, or at least a lot of us do, and when touch tone came into existence as a new technology versus dial, and then all of a sudden we started moving into a digital world and we ended up with cell phones and the whole thing switched around. And obviously the old infrastructure for telephones, wires and cables, simply doesn't work for cell phones. And so a whole new infrastructure had to be developed in order to supply those. And we see towers across the country and the evidences of this new infrastructure because of the new technology. Well, technology has also changed in the electrical world, and there are a lot of things that can be done now with electricity that couldn't be done or we had no need to do 100 years ago or even decades ago. And so some of the technology that exists in our grid simply does not support the technology options that are available to families, homeowners, companies, even some of the new generation techniques. We have what's called distributed generation now. We have people that build wind farms and sell electricity to our utilities, and we have folks that put solar panels on their roof and generate some of their own electricity and then would like to sell electricity back into the grid. Well, the old grid, it wasn't really built for two-way communication and for two-way transmission of electricity. It was designed for one-way transportation. You generated at a nuclear plant or a coal plant or a natural gas plant, and you sent that electricity out into the homes and the businesses. So a lot of those things have changed, and we wanted to hear in the interim committee, we wanted to find out what other states are doing, who seems to be doing the best in terms of optimizing that infrastructure, and how they generated the revenue in order to make those investments. And so we met several times in the interim. We heard from multiple states. We heard from commissioners from other states. And out of those meetings, we had three potential approaches that we wanted to take. One of those turned into Senate Bill 190. It's a very mild approach to reforming regulations in Missouri that allows an accounting technique to be used that currently is not available to our utilities. And it costs them quite a bit of money because of the way the accounting is done now. I won't try to go into the details of that because they can get complicated, but it would allow for that accounting to be adjusted so that they were able to receive benefits from investments immediately instead of having to wait maybe years to begin receiving benefits from those investments. It would also allow them to invest an additional amount beyond what they're currently investing in infrastructure in order to help modernize that grid. We made some significant changes to the bill. We execed it out of committee, and it hopefully will be on the calendar soon for open debate in the Senate. One of those changes is putting in an absolute limit on how much of an impact it is allowed to have on a customer's bill. Right now, the cap in there is 0.1% per month on how much it could actually increase a customer bill. That's a pretty mild change in regulations. I think the people that really understand what this is about tend to support it. We've gotten calls of folks who opposed it. Once we explained it to them, they frequently change their minds because they haven't really considered exactly what they would be getting for a fairly minor adjustment in what it's costing us for our electricity. So I was pleased that we were able to send it to the floor, and I hope we'll have some healthy debate on the floor and be able to pass that into law.
Along these same lines, another bill of yours heard this week that pertains to a different utility, in the form of water.
Oh, that's exactly right. One of the things that people who pay water bills can tell you is they have high bills and low bills. There are months when they use a lot of water. There are months when they use very little water, maybe a wet winter, and there's just not a lot of water use. So we all try to manage those usages, and we watch our bills, and we know that if we use more water, we're going to pay more for the water. One of the problems that creates, though, is for the companies that provide that water, it also means there are huge swings in their revenue streams. Depending on the weather, they might be profitable one year and unprofitable another year. That makes it very difficult for them to plan any kind of, in their case, again, infrastructure upgrades or maintenance. If a water company needs some infrastructure work done, they might have to wait until a very dry time of year so that the revenue streams are up enough that they can afford to hire the contractors and have that water main replaced or something else. It also affects the customers because we see those wide swings in our bills. So what the regulatory bill for water does is it does what we call a revenue stabilization mechanism. It simply means that your water bill is going to be based on how much revenue that company needs according to the Public Service Commission versus just a guess at how much water will be used. And then each year, at the end of the year, if there was any overcharges, those would be sent back to the customers. And if there were any undercharges, those would be distributed over the next 12 months in terms of an increase in the rate for the water. These would be very small type things. We're talking about probably less than 1% usually that it would impact a person's bill. But it's still significant for that company when they try to stabilize their revenue stream. And it would have some impact on customers that they wouldn't see as high a peaks during dry spells and they wouldn't see quite as low of valleys during the wet spells. I think in terms of it making the delivery of water more efficient and therefore more cost effective, I think those are very real. In areas where this mechanism has been employed, they have seen real economic benefits that will eventually work their way to the customer. So I think it's going to be good for our regulatory environment, good for the Missouri water companies and Missouri water customers if we can move that bill out of committee and onto the floor.
Another issue, another measure, the first to receive time on both the House and Senate floors, now been signed into law. That's Senate Bill 19, the Right to Work bill.
Absolutely. There was quite a bit of celebration. That has been a long time coming. A lot of folks gathered in the governor's office to watch him sign that bill. And so August 28th, we will be the 28th right to work state. That's when legislation takes effect on the normal calendar unless it has some kind of an emergency clause, which this bill does not. One of the reasons that we didn't put an emergency clause on the bill and make it happen sooner, well, actually, the main reason was because there are contractual arrangements with unions right now with most companies. They're going to have to work through some legal issues to work their way beyond those contracts. In Missouri, it is unconstitutional for us to break a contract, to mandate a break of a contract. So we wanted to be very sensitive to that, give companies and unions the opportunity to try to work out this transition period. So there was no real reason to take that constitutional risk and put an emergency clause. So effective August 28th, Missouri will be the 28th right to work state in the country.